for 3 days, I'm, like, pacing around the psych unit, like, just, I'm just walking all day, just no I just can't stop, like, it
Right.
took at first, I didn't really kinda realize what was happening, but then on the 3rd day, they came over to me, like, the team working with me sat me down, they were like, "Yeah, we don't think you have psychosis anymore." I'm just like, What are you talking about?" Like, I'm
Wow.
here with my physical symptoms, like, my body's tremoring,
Mm.
I have the anhedonia, I have nerve tingles all over my body, and, like, you're treating me for psychosis?
Wow.
And I at first, like, all my other symptoms went away one by one. I assumed I was done with this, and then it just came back gradually, the anhedonia. This time I had random parts of my body go numb. I'd wake up and, like, my whole arm and, like, right side of my body would go numb, my
Mm.
back would go numb, my feet would go numb. I've done so many tests. I did an MRI, EEG, like, my family spent so much money on, like, blood work for this, so, like,
Yep.
and it just all comes back normal. I can't feel physical comfort really anymore, and I can't feel, like, mental comfort, like,
Mhm.
it's quite strange, and I can't feel now this is as of recently, over the past, like, month, I've had just new symptoms kinda just pop out,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, like, I'll try to lie down, and it just feels like nothing, it's like I'm weightless, and I just can't get comfortable no matter what, and then the insomnia now I have again, but in, like, a totally different way. It's like I can't feel being sleepy anymore. Like,
Right.
I have this pain just emanating from my, like, nervous system. Like, I don't really know how to describe it, but I can't relax. Like,
Yeah.
every time I try to relax, there's just some, like it's like I'm being constantly overstimulated by something,
Mhm.
and it's just been making this, like, 10 times harder, and, like, all those symptoms I just mentioned, like, just came about within, like, the last month, like, within, like, 3 months of stopping Duloxetine. So it's like, if I just ignored my doctors, I'd probably be out of this mess already.
All right, what is going on, guys? This is Mark Millick here with the Moral Medicine YouTube channel. Today we are going to be speaking to Colby. So Colby is a patient that took lion's mane. He's going to tell us his story and get right into it. So Colby, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll just start at the very beginning, I guess. So, last year, I got really into self-improvement. I was doing, like, cold showers, meditating, exercising, eating healthy, just, like, all these things try to maximize my overall well-being. And the more I got into the space, the more I found just, like, more things to add to my routines, add to just what I'm doing. And I came across these supplements, like, these things called, in particular, nootropic supplements. Some, fitness influencers who I was following at the time were talking about it, how they take them and they boost various aspects of their biology, like people were talking about, oh, you take ashwagandha, you can boost your testosterone with it, or take like Tonkat Ollie, lion's mane, you boost your cognition. And then a friend of mine was telling me about this nootropic supplement that I had heard about, but was a bit hesitant to start. It's called lion's mane, and it's a mushroom, and I was thinking at the time, it's like it's kind of weird to take a mushroom for self-improvement purposes. Like, I mean, how long am I going to be taking a mushroom for? But my friend was telling me about it. He made it seem pretty interesting. It sounded like it was working really well for him. So I ordered it from this company that he told me he got it from, which he was telling me is like the most or one of the more potent forms of lion's mane. I'm pretty sure it's the most potent form on the market from this company, Real Mushrooms. So I ordered it. I started taking it. 2 weeks in, I just felt a massive cognitive boost. Like, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced. My brain fog went away. My analytical abilities and memory just peaked to a level that I just never would have thought possible for me.
Mm.
Like, I was going through my computer science work just so easily. It was like I was more, like, consciously aware. It was just incredible for me. And then I had another friend recommend me another supplement called ashwagandha, um, which I started taking. He was telling me it's good for testosterone. So I was like, all right, well, I've kind of heard that testosterone is good for like your overall well-being. So I was like, okay, I'll just go to like Target, order this, just buy it. So that's what I did. So I was taking the ashwagandha, the lion's mane, and yeah, I was taking them for like 4 months. And everything was great. I had insomnia from a different incident. Um, but towards the 4th month, my insomnia had just increased dramatically. I could barely sleep. My thoughts would, like, race all night. So I decided, I'm like, maybe it's one of these supplements that are it's giving me insomnia." So I stopped, I'd stopped the ashwagandha, like, 2 weeks prior, and I had no issues with it. And then and I still had the insomnia, but then the lion's mane I tried stopping. And this is after 4 months of taking just 1 gram of it daily. Like, this is just the recommended dose on the bottle. That's what I do with the ashwagandha too. It was just 300 milligrams.
Sure.
So yeah, so I stop it, and everything is okay for the first couple days, but then I start feeling kinda weird. I was just having these mental sensations that I find difficult to describe. It felt like my head was, like, about to like, I feel like I was about to have, like, a psychosis, like, multiple times. Like, it was just I felt like I was about to have, like, some sort of weird episode,
Mm,
and, yeah, just I'd have strange mental visualizations. It's quite strange, and then on top of that, I also started beginning to have physical symptoms. I had to have nerve tingles going all throughout my body, like, every second of the day, just rapid fire, like,
right.
all over my body. Um, and then yeah, then that, lasted for a while, and then eventually, I woke up on the 13th day,
Mm,
and I just had anhedonia. I just woke up with anhedonia.
wow.
Um, it was just I was very confused as to what was happening. I woke up, and I remember I went to my couch to watch, like, YouTube like I usually do. I was
Mhm,
watching this streamer who I like, this guy Destiny, and,
mhm,
like, I just couldn't understand why talking to other people is, like, something that, like, we enjoy. It was like it
yeah,
was so strange. It was, like, because my own reward system was fragmented, I couldn't even understand other people's.
right, right.
And yeah, and then I went downstairs, I tried to eat food. Food just had no mental appeal to it. It was just, like it was so strange. And then initially, I wasn't too freaked out. I was just like, "Okay, I'm sure this will go away in a week." But then it just gradually got so much worse. The anhedonia would just intensify every day to the point I just I couldn't feel any love for my family. Like,
Mm,
it was like a nightmare. I remember I went downstairs to talk with them. Like, I gave my mom a hug, and it just felt like nothing, like,
yeah.
just total void. And I remember when this happened too, I had another strange thing. It felt like I was, like, in the middle of a painful withdrawal syndrome. It was like there's a video of my dad has of me just kinda groaning in pain walking around the house. Like, it felt like I was having, like, these neurotransmitters just, like, slowly drained from my body, and that lasted for, like, a few days. Um, and I was just at this point, I'm totally freaked out. I'm, like, looking on Reddit and, like, seeing if anybody's had a similar thing as me. I
Mm,
find, that one guy, this guy Ryan and Ryan Russo talking about how they had anhedonia from this. So
right.
I'm like, "Oh god, I just fucked myself."
Mhm,
But yeah, and eventually I kept waking up with some more symptoms. I woke up with tremors in my legs, at one point, and then I couldn't feel parts of my skin, and at this point, I'm like, "Okay, I need to go to the hospital." So I told my parents, I'm like, "Alright, let's go to the ER." We get there, and this was probably the worst day for me. I had taken, 40 milligrams of propranolol
okay,
because 'cause I have, an anxiety disorder,
sure.
so I took that, and that had apparently just crashed me to just a horrible spot. I couldn't feel physical comfort lying down. Eventually, they bring out the psychiatrist because my main complaint was severe anhedonia, and I guess like they were kind of confused by what I was talking about. I assumed that they would know exactly what I meant, but like
Sure.
this, when the psychiatrist got to me, he was like, "That's not really like what anhedonia means."
Mhm,
Like he was comparing it to just like regular like pain, but
mhm.
I'm just it's just so strange.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So did you realize that lion's mane was the cause of this, or did it take you a little while, like, with your research when you finally realized there's a connection here between what I'm going through and the lion's mane supplement?
Oh, I knew immediately. It
Did
was
you?
just yeah, I mean, I as soon as I stopped the supplement and I'm getting all these side effects, like, And then I come to find out there's a whole community of people on Reddit who are having these crazy side effects, and they're all saying the same things: the nerve tingles, the anhedonia, the lack of sleep. And I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, it's amazing that there's still a denial about this when you look at all the people who are coming out and talking about how they have all the same symptoms induced by the same medication or the same supplement.
it's incredible. Yeah,
It's also interesting too because you were fine for the most part taking it. You dealt with a little insomnia, you said while you were on it. Then when you came off it, that's when you started experiencing all of these essentially withdrawal effects that you're still dealing with even to this day, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything was great on them, except the insomnia, which was only really bad towards the last month.
Yeah.
Like,
I hear that a lot. There's guys who I talk to who took like saw palmetto, for example, for a period of a month or two, and they felt great while they were taking the saw palmetto, and it was only after they came off the medication that they started experiencing the side effects, or the
yeah,
withdrawal effects, as you call them, right? And unfortunately, I've talked to people who took saw palmetto for a month. We have a doctor who actually went public on our channel about 3 months ago. Took saw palmetto for a month, and he was actually taking it. It was in just a regular Men's Health vitamin supplement. Felt
wow,
great for that month, came off it, and now it's been like 3 years later, he's still experiencing the adverse effects from that, and I know
wow.
he fights every single day to do what he can to stay alive. It's unbelievably difficult. So, does your family, if you don't mind me asking, does your family believe you? Do they acknowledge that what you're going through is legitimate?
They're really just confused by the whole thing.
Yeah,
Like, I've been talking with them a lot about it, but they just are so puzzled by it. They think it's just kind of like a mental health thing. Like,
right.
my mom doesn't really understand it. She thinks it's kind of just like depression.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, the situation is just so far out of the norm for like what somebody experiences.
right.
Like,
Dude, I mean, how do
they
you
just
explain
can't
it?
wrap their heads around it.
No, I mean, I wouldn't be able to understand this myself had I not gone through it. I'm still dealing with the persistent side effects from Finasteride for 2.5, 3 years now. And if somebody tried explaining this to me before I took the medication, I wouldn't understand what they're going through. I mean, to experience pure anhedonia as well, that's such a weird thing, right? Because you mentioned how you were questioning why people find it interesting to interact with one another.
Yeah,
And I find myself doing the same thing. I used to love socializing and interacting with people. When you start to question that, there's some type of weird biochemical reaction that's just off in your brain, right? That's not normal.
exactly.
So I completely understand that, man. Where are you at now, if you don't mind me asking? Are the symptoms, are they just as bad as they were before? Have they improved? What are you still experiencing?
Yeah, it's a mix. So I've had a lot of my symptoms mutate after trying to get help for this. Because like
Yeah,
obviously when something like this happens, like you go to your doctor and you listen to them.
right.
But oh, I mean overall the anhedonia has gotten better. Like
Okay.
I'd say I'm at like it really fluctuates a lot. I have a lot of windows and waves, but right now I'd say I'm probably at like 50%, 50,
Okay.
60%, something like that.
Okay.
Um, and that's only because recently I've been in a bit of a wave, but
Sure.
yeah,
And
but
that's
yeah,
after how many months off?
it's about it's gonna be 8 months in a week.
Okay. I gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, with, like, every subsequent medication I tried, it just seemed to really kinda make things worse. Yeah, so you
Hmm.
mind if I just continue where I was going with the
Yeah.
story?
Go ahead, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm at the ER, and the psychiatrist comes in, and I tell him what's going on, and for some reason, he said, "I've seen this before. You're going to be okay." And I was just like he just, like, kinda said that for no reason, and I was like, "Oh, alright." So but he's like, "But we wanna monitor you in the hospital for, like, a week." So I was like, "Okay." And then then they wheelchaired me over somewhere, and which ended up being the psychiatric unit. So I stayed there for a week, and it took me like a day to kind of realize what just happened. Like I'm in the psychiatric unit. I thought like it's gonna be like those like episodes of like House or whatever where it's like the patients like stay in the hospital to get monitored by the doctors. Like I assumed that was what was going on, but they instead were just treating this as if it was just like a mental health thing.
Right.
And
Sure.
so when that happened, the day that happened, it's the psychiatrist, he tells one of the nurses to give me a pill. He's like the nurse comes over to me, "The psychiatrist said to take this," and now keep in mind, the psychiatrist had literally just said, "I've seen this before, you're going to be okay." So I'm like,
Right.
"Okay." So I just take the pill. I'm like I just take it, and it ended up being, the antipsychotic Abilify,
Mm.
and for 3 days, I'm, like, pacing around the psych unit, like, just I'm just walking all day, just no I just can't stop, like It
Right.
took at first, I didn't really kinda realize what was happening, but then on the 3rd day, they came over to me, like, the team working with me sat me down, they were like, "Yeah, we don't think you have psychosis anymore." I'm just like, What are you talking about?" Like, I'm
Wow.
here with my physical symptoms, like, my body's tremoring,
Mm.
I have the anhedonia, I have nerve tingles all over my body, and, like, you're treating me for psychosis?
Wow.
And, yeah, I was just like, "Wow, that's okay." But I'm sure
Right.
you guys so I'm like, "I'm sure you guys have a plan for how to get me better, right?" I mean, I didn't say that, but I just kind of assumed that.
You would
So
assume
then
that, absolutely, yeah.
yeah, exactly, and then a few days later, or 2 days later, they gave me Zoloft, and I'm like, "Okay, this is probably a calculated move to restore my reward system." It's like right? Like, I mean, they said they've seen this before. So I take the Zoloft, and I haven't seen anything like this online, but and they didn't believe me. Nobody believes you when I say this, unless except for you guys, but it, like, put me in remission from anhedonia, like, after taking 2 pills of the Zoloft,
Sure.
and that lasted for 2 weeks. So I was in full remission for
Yeah.
2 weeks. I
Mhm.
go to tell them, they're like, "Yeah, you're experiencing the placebo effect." And I'm just like, "No, but, like, you don't understand, like, I'm not anhedonic anymore." Like, they were like, "That doesn't make any sense." And they were like, "We also want you on 200 milligrams of Zoloft." I'm just like, "My symptoms are gone. Like, I don't need to be on anything."
And they kept pushing it.
So oh, yeah, they pushed it for the whole time. They wouldn't let me leave unless I agreed to taking I agreed to take 75 milligrams, but I was just like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna take that, though."
That's
Um
unbelievable. They're basically shoving SSRIs down your throat as a means to treat something that they can't even really demonstrate at this point. I mean, they're trying to combat what you're going through with more medication, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I just wish they were, like, honest with me with what they were treating me for. Like, they were treating me for, like, the rumination about my symptoms, 'cause I had expressed, like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess I could be suicidal if, like, this persisted," and I was pretty worried.
Sure.
But, I wish they would've expressed that to me, that that was their main treatment goal, just managing my thoughts. But, yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't. And then yeah, so 2 weeks later, I experienced a massive crash. I at first, like, all my other symptoms went away one by one. I assumed I was done with this, and then it just came back gradually. The anhedonia. This time I had random parts of my body go numb. I'd wake up and, like, my whole arm and, like, right side of my body would go numb. My
Mm.
back would go numb. My feet would go numb.
Mhm.
Luckily, that only lasted about 3 months, but
Yeah.
it was super freaky. And I'd have weakness in my hands. Like, I couldn't, like, squeeze my hands. It's
Yeah.
just
Right.
crazy. And then yeah, I worked with my general practitioner about with this, and she was like, she gave me this theory. She was like, "Yeah, we can fix this by stabilizing your serotonin and dopamine levels." I was just like, "Okay, that makes sense." And she's like, "We're gonna put you back on sertraline and Abilify." And I was just like, "Okay, fine." And I do that, and then I had when the day I started that combination, I had the weirdest episode. It was like all stimulation in my brain turned off for like 45 minutes. It was like I was literally screaming and crying in my house. It was like an acid trip. It was insanity. I just kept taking the meds that even though this happened hours after I took them. I didn't really attribute it to them, but like looking back now, obviously that was probably what did that. But
Yeah.
I say I kept taking these meds for a while, the antipsychotic and then sertraline,
Yeah.
and I was having the pacing, I just couldn't stop moving for, like, a month. I
Yeah.
texted my doctor, she's like, "Yeah, it'll go away," and it actually did go away, but, I
Mm.
mean, I got lucky it went away. From what I've seen, this stuff can last, like, for a while, the pacing.
For years for some people. I've
Yeah,
seen. Yeah.
it's unbelievable, yeah, and then yeah, eventually, my symptoms were pretty stable around this time, but I was like, "Alright, I kinda wanna try something else." So, I told my GP, and she's like, "We can try duloxetine." And at this point, I had known about PSSD, but
Sure.
I'm thinking like, okay, am I really gonna believe people on Reddit over my doctor? Like, that's not rational, right?
Right.
Like,
I agree with you.
you do like, yeah, you just don't do that. I'm
Yep.
like,
Yep.
so I get to Loxetine, I wean myself off of sertraline, no issues. And I tried Duloxetine. The first pill puts me in full remission from anhedonia for a week. It was like incredible. I'm like just like the surgery reaction. So I was right, and the doctors were wrong at the psych unit.
Mm,
And yeah, so I take it for a week, and I'm like, okay. I mean, obviously after that reaction, I'm thinking like, this is the med that's gonna get me better. And
mhm,
then on the second week, I got apathy that's persisted this whole time, and it's
mhm.
been making this. It's just made this whole thing like 10 times harder to deal with.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Is that kind of where you're at now? You just have a lot of apathy?
yeah, it's apathy, the abolition, low motivation. It was so unnatural, and I texted because my GP is my aunt, so I texted her, and she was like, "It's probably your underlying symptoms." At this point, I'm like, I'm skeptical. I'm like, I don't think so. This is very unnatural. Like
Yeah.
this entire time, I was motivated to at least like walk around my neighborhood, listen to music, even though it didn't really give me that much joy. Like
Mhm,
play a video game. But
mhm.
as soon as like 2 weeks hit with the Loxetine, it's just like I just don't wanna do it, but it's so unnatural.
Right.
Like, yeah, and I think the worst part about this is that, like, people who I talk about this to, they think that they're experiencing the same thing, but
Right.
they're not, and that has been the most frustrating piece for me. Like,
It's
uh,
lonely, man. Yeah, you feel so isolated because nobody can really fully understand this, and, people can say they understand it, but this is such a unique situation here, you know?
yeah,
And these doctors basically just pumped you with more and more medication as a means to treat something that they weren't even certain of, you know?
yeah,
And that's where, I mean, everybody has that experience where doctors it's like when doctors don't know what it is, they just give you an SSRI, right? That seems to be
literally.
the experience of a lot of people. When I went in for my treatment, when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me when I was taking Finasteride, they found nothing in my scans, they found nothing in my blood work, so they prescribed me Prozac. And I never took it. I something deep down inside me said, "Do not take this medication. It's something bad's gonna happen." So I never took it, but it's like, so
Nice.
that's the answer for everything, though. You guys don't know what it is, so here's an antidepressant, and this should make you feel better. It's just
Exactly.
crazy, man.
It's just anxiety and depression. That's what she was
Right.
saying. That's what like all the doctors were saying for months. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
it really sucks because there's no biomarker yet for this
I
stuff.
know.
So like all
I
my tests, I've done so many tests. I did an MRI, EEG, like my family spent so much money on like blood work for this. So like,
yeah.
and it just all comes back normal.
Right, right. You mentioned too, I mean, you took more supplements as a means to try to combat this, and you
Mhm.
ended up feeling worse from doing that. That's the scary thing about experimentation too.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't encourage it myself. Some people, if they want to experiment, they obviously can, but you just got to be cognizant of the fact that this could make you worse, down the road. So you just got to be careful, man. It's really insane. We, like you said, we don't have a biomarker yet, so we don't know what's going on or how to treat it ultimately. But you've had this long journey of going through this entire process, all because you took lion's mane. That was sort of the catalyst for all
Yep.
this, and this is where you're at now. That's insane, man. It really is.
Yep. I can't feel physical comfort really anymore. And I can't feel like mental comfort. Like
Hmm.
it's quite strange, and I can't feel now. This is as of recently, over the past like month, I've had just new symptoms kind of just pop out.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like I'll try to lie down, and it just feels like nothing. It's like I'm weightless. And I just can't get comfortable no matter what. And then the insomnia now I have again, but in like a totally different way. It's like I can't feel being sleepy anymore. Like
right, right.
so, I'll just like kind of lay awake.
Dude, I get that. I sleep for literally 2 hours a night. It's been like that for 2.5 years now. I'm not saying you're going to have the same experience as me, but I
Yeah,
don't feel sleepy anymore. I don't feel tired. I just have to sit there and I basically doze. It's like at any moment I can open my eyes. Like I'm still fully conscious, but when I do sleep, it's not quality sleep. I don't get any REM sleep anymore. I wake up,
yeah,
I could sleep for 10 hours and wake up feeling exhausted.
yeah.
So I pray, man, that that goes away for you. I know that's a really bad symptom in itself.
Yeah, thanks. This one seems to fluctuate a lot for me, and it's
Yeah.
fairly new, but it's
Yeah.
still freaking me the hell out. And then the worst one I'd say is this: I have this pain just emanating from my like nervous system. Like I don't really know how to describe it, but I can't relax. Like
Yeah.
every time I try to relax, there's just some like it's like I'm being constantly overstimulated by something.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's just been making this, like, 10 times harder, and, like, all those symptoms I just mentioned, like, just came about within, like, the last month, like, within, like, 3 months of stopping Duloxetine. So it's like, if I just ignored my doctors, I'd probably be out of this mess already, like
I don't want to give medical advice on here, but my personal recommendation is the best thing you can do is just don't take anything while your body's in this state. It's obviously in a
Yeah.
very vulnerable and sort of volatile state. So that's the issue, man. Like people, I've talked to so many people who take lion's mane or they take an SSRI or they take, finasteride or dutasteride. They start experiencing these symptoms. They go in and their doctors just continue to give them more medications that could potentially exacerbate their symptoms and make things worse, man. So
Yeah.
like, who do you turn to at that point, man? Do you go to your
Exactly.
doctors? And like you said, you went on Reddit too. You don't want to take advice from Reddit. I wouldn't advise people to do that.
Yeah.
But maybe Reddit's onto something, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's like I'm like trying to explain to my family this type of stuff, and they're just like, "You need to listen to the doctors." And I'm just like,
Mm,
they don't understand. They like I asked 4 psychiatrists if they've heard of PSSD. They were
yeah.
like, "No."
Yep.
Like
Yep.
like they just can't understand it. No matter how many times I try to explain, I'm like, "This is like a super rare condition that's not recognized." They're like, "No, get off the internet. You need to listen to the doctors." And like I can't get through to anybody in my life. It's just
Yeah,
incredible. Like,
it's gaslighting to the extreme, man. That's what it is. I mean, you know your body better than anybody else. You know how your cognition works. You know how your
yeah,
perception of life is. And when that all of a sudden shifts and somebody's telling you, no, this is all just psychosomatic or it's depression or anxiety, it's like you know that's not what it is. You
yeah,
know it's
exactly.
induced by the medications that you were taking.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's just crazy.
well, Colby, let me say this, man. Just hang in there. A lot of good things are happening right now in the research realm. People are going public. There are studies going on right now. I think we are going to get this figured out in a reasonable time frame. We just have to hang in there for the time being, and hopefully, you continue seeing improvements as well, like you have been. So I'll cross my fingers for you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Before we hop off, do you have any closing statements you want to make, or anything else you want to say?
Um, yeah, nothing really other than just don't try nootropics. I mean, these things are dangerous. Like, I've seen various antidotes of people getting anhedonia from like things like Bacopa, like NAC,
Yep.
like all these supplements. It's like they're not like the harmless vitamins that like you would think that they are. So just
All
keep
over the
your eyes
counter
on that,
too.
man.
You can just buy
Yeah,
these pretty much today if you want to without a prescription.
yeah,
Yeah. Man. Well, Colby, hey, man, thank you so much for coming on this channel. We really appreciate it.
yeah. Thanks for having me.